Gareth Nicholas, welcome to the Lockdown Sessions, your podcast debut, I'm going to call it.
Hi, Brad.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How about yourself?
Yeah, no, I'm always good, and I'm delighted to have you here. Southend-on-Sea Borough Council. We were just discussing before titles for to edit the podcast, but I've put you down as a change agent working in service design. Is that fair?
That is absolutely fair.
We could spend the next 20 minutes with you just actually extrapolating that and trying to explain to people what that actually means. So before I ask you the first question, when you're involved in service design, actually, what does that mean? Because when you and I first met, you were at a district council, and we worked together very closely. Maybe we'll have some fun about talking about a couple of the sessions that ran in that program, where we rolled out a two-day project management workshop for a huge part of your population. Actually working together, we found a nice connection in how we laughed about the things that went wrong on it.
Yeah.
I won't mention any names because that wouldn't be fair. They might be listening in privately. But we definitely had one disaster.
Yes, yeah. But good learning, good learning.
It was great learning. I'll never forget the email I got at 5 from you and the other key sponsor for the program saying, "Hi, Brad. Hope you've had a good day. Could we jump on a call today?"
It always sets the tone and the scene nicely, doesn't it?
I sense the urgency of, yes, of course we can. I'm dialing in now. It was a moment in time. That was all. Talk to me about service design and what is it you actually do at Southend-on-Sea?
Yeah, so service design is an interesting one in terms of what it means, because in the team in Southend, we found that it means a lot of different things to different people.
Right.
What it really is about making sure what you're delivering as services and some products associated with it meet your users' needs. So for local government, that is residents, businesses, everyone that you serve as a council, making sure that the way your services are delivered and structured are there to meet their needs, in a nutshell.
That in itself, just when you say it out loud, just sounds inherently challenging and filled with pitfalls because of the expectations people have, because of course they pay your salary, right?
Yeah, but no, it's easy, it's straightforward. No, yeah, you're right. There are a lot of challenges, yeah, in a good way.
Okay, so look, I start all of these podcast episodes with the same question, and then we kind of take it from there as a freestyle. And, you know, confirming to anyone who's listening that we do not have I know you've got a lot of prep there. You just showed me like 4 pages of prep that you've done.
That was a joke. That was my comedic material. I've already burnt through it as well.
Oh no, we've gone, right, okay, it's all on me. But I always ask the same question because I'm genuinely nosy and curious, is the word coaches use for nosy. I'm genuinely curious about what people have observed around behaviours, ultimate observations during lockdown, and especially working in an environment that you are, where you're looking at sort of efficacy of products and services and how they fit for people. You've probably got to see people at their worst as well, because you're servicing the public, right? And whether it's business or it's residents, it's the public who look to councils to help in these kinds of moments, and you're front line. So what have your observations been over the last 7 months? I can't believe it's 7 months, but it is.
Yeah, it sounds really weird when you say it like that. It feels like it's been 7 weeks, if that.
Yeah, right.
8 a day, 7 hours. Yeah, that's it's interesting because it's so easy to compare with what it was before, what I've experienced, not just at Southend, but where I've worked elsewhere before. And the first thing I'd say is in terms of when engaging with the public, I can't actually think of when that's been that much of a challenge. That's actually, dare I say, the easiest part.
Great, yeah, lovely.
Even when they've got something that's really, you know, really emotional, and you know, it's their lives. That actually is the most rewarding, but it's usually quite straightforward. Usually, the difficulties are when you then have to bring it back into your organisation to
Right.
look at it. I mean, there's kind of three things up, because I was thinking, you know, in prep for this, you know, what have I observed? What really is going on? Because you kind of live from moment to moment, activity to activity.
Right.
There were three things that sprung to mind for me, and they were silo working, being slow to act and develop things in terms of local authorities, councils, and a command and control approach. So those are classically the elements that you'd view a local government as, any council. Sometimes that's a bit unfair, but when working in you said, like, there's a change agent, that they are the common themes that come out. No matter where you are, those things always pop up. It's always about, you know, we don't work together internally. We've got separate teams. We're doing to, not with, for our residents, our customers, our users, and we just take ages to get things done. Yeah. So that's the things that there's usually truth in it. Sometimes it's not as accurate as it seems, and there are reasons why. And they're the kind of things that, when reflecting on, you know, the impact of COVID and what that's had on those three elements, my perception and what I've observed is silo working is, I would say, greatly reducing. There's less there's less time, so you have to develop things quicker. There was already initiative at Southend. They've been really good at making sure, like, that residents' needs, business needs are at the forefront of what we're doing. And again, that's been increased because of the impact of COVID. There's so many things that we don't know. Unprecedented is used quite a lot now. Yeah. It's still true. We don't have a manual or playbook on what to do and how to do it with a lot of things. And that's about how services are looking at themselves now to say, well, what are we going to do now? And the best people to ask that question and to have it answered are the ones who are your customers, your users, your residents, your small businesses and things like that. They're the main things that I've witnessed in a positive.
You talk about, you know, slow to action almost. And I hear what you're saying about silos, because so much effort went into, we need to work more as teams. You need to make more of an effort to work as a team. And I think that what people were missing wasn't so much their own teams working in silos. It was those ad hoc conversations with people from completely different teams.
Yeah.
You know, when you're walking from the bus stop or the station or the car park and you bump into someone and you have a good little chinwag about something, or a moan and a whinge. I think those are the elements that are missing. And I remember one client set up like a canteen, a virtual canteen. And just like every other canteen, it would open at like 8 in the morning and close at 3. So for those people that, you know, took lunch later, they'd go in and there's nothing left. And you could go in at any time. Yeah. And of course, just like in a canteen, you might walk in and the people in there are like, well, I'm going to turn around and walk straight out again. And that happens, right? And of course, in a virtual room, you're much more exposed in that way. And trying to recreate that. So as an organization, were you guys concerned that suddenly we're going to be inundated with requests? We're going to have to try and do so much. And did that play out the way you expected?
So I think there was a definite worry about that, how this would occur. There's so many unknowns. How do you answer the questions that you don't have answers to?
Right.
So I think that definitely played out. I think that command and control element that is like I said, is levied negatively, that actually came out in positives. So in terms of having myself, we've got gold, silver, and bronze command groups, and there was elements of making sure that what needed to be done. So from the point of legislation, public health, those things were covered, but also that they were learned from as well, and that it was redistributed into the organisation. So and you have all these different people connected, which was really, really good, because again, silo working just went out the window straight away. You couldn't argue with it. It just went in some regards. In terms of it playing out how I thought it would, I was positively surprised that in the early days, if you think about it, we talk about a lot about recovery now. So that kind of what results from a crisis, you have the crisis, and then it goes into that recovery stage, what you do next. But in the crisis part, I think that people just mucked in and got involved, and I think that was really, really positive.
There's something in that. No, there's something in that. I saw it even in my own village when this all kicked off. The kind of, and I don't think it's a typically British thing. I think it happened globally. At the kickoff, there was this sense of community spirit.
Yeah.
And everyone gets involved, and friends of mine volunteering to drive meals to people's houses. I saw on my own village Facebook page, people asking the local shop, can we make deliveries of food to the people who can't get out? There's all that kind. I don't get a lot of likes on Facebook. I don't use it very much. I'm just that generation, a little older than Facebook. But I did post something on the Facebook local page offering out, like free psychotherapy sessions to anybody who was, being challenged with mental health.
Yeah.
And I got so many, hundreds of likes for it. And normally I get like 8, I get my brother, my sister. I'm wondering now, as we're kind of, moving into month 8 in a couple of weeks, we're quite tired of it. How do you sustain that ongoing positivity? Because everything you've described in kind of this opening 10 minutes, actually, not with surprise, but with kind of joy, it's been going well. You guys have performed, you've delivered, you've actually exceeded some of the expectations because you've got down and dirty and really got on with it. But now we're in that endurance phase. We don't know when the end is in sight. I don't know what you guys are looking at when it comes to getting back into offices, but we're staring down the barrel of another sort of lockdown. How are you sustaining that kind of high level deliverable when part of your role is you facilitate change? So you might be great with it, but what about all those people you're serving?
Yeah, there's kind of different levels to it, isn't there? Because you've got your levels within your organisation. So for a local authority, you've got your senior managers, you've got your managers, you've got your staff, you've got those frontline staff. You've got people like me that a lot of people probably don't like because you're used to change and can get really, annoying and preachy at times, maybe. So you've got all of that, but like you said, you've got the community as well, and that impacts. Just to go back to that point as well, like the amount of conversations I've had with my neighbours I've never had before. Well, you usually just go, all right, how's it going? Now it's like, hi, how are you doing? Oh, what's this? Oh, there's just so many different conversations. That's been nice to a point, but mostly nice.
Well, you can't invite them into your home, so don't worry, you can't.
Yeah, that's it's a good point. Yeah, it's like vampire rules, isn't it?
You have a nice chat over the fence. That's cool.
But yeah, all of those different. It's that systemic view, isn't it? About it's just, you can't just go. Yeah, as a council, we do X, residents Y. You're happy, job done. Particularly now, where it's a lot of stuff is going. Like you said, it's a case of you push forward until you get out to the other side, and now the other side's a little bit murky. It's a case of, well, are we going back in? Are we going into something else that's completely different but very related in terms of these new lockdown rules? So in terms of, if I were to tackle it one by one, in terms of staffing in Southend Council, for example, there's a lot of discussions that are happening. Some I'm not even a part of. Even people who you would consider to be change agents in the organisation aren't a part of. But people are starting to be very open. I've noticed very, very open about, how am I feeling as an individual? What am I witnessing that others are acting like or behaving, or what they've said that they're feeling like, and what can we do as to resolve that, to get something that feels, a bit normal. We've talked about Christmas meals and parties that were on the agenda beforehand that are going to be done in a different way at the very least now.
By the way, finance are delighted about that.
Finance are delighted.
Because they've just seen, all those budgets that people used to go and ask for Christmas parties. That's now all saved because we're all going to be having mistletoe and wine in our homes.
I think that must be before my time. I don't think I've ever worked anywhere where you didn't have to fork in for the parties and dinners yourself. That's long before.
That's old school.
But yeah, it's that kind of thing where I think people are taking ownership. If I was to sum it up, people are taking ownership to say, I'm looking out for myself and I'm looking out for my work colleague, my work friend, and us as a group, which is really, really, again, somewhat unexpected, because you kind of just get your head down usually at work and you work through. But it's that positivity about, now that we got through that, we need to look a bit inwards. We need to look around at people and how we can support another in that respect. And I think that's going to be really key for our customers, those residents, those businesses.
And maybe it goes to your point from earlier and why working in silos shifted, because actually we are more open to connecting with others, like your neighbours, and doing stuff together. And in work, it's the same kind of thing. We're kind of acutely aware of how sensitive right now is. I spoke to an Italian coach the other day, one of my team, and he says to me, Brad, we're living in the I don't know world. You ask me a question and the answer generally right now is, I don't know. And for those of us in change, and you and I sat in change workshops before as well, and I think about the change curve.
Yes.
And you get down to that bottom bit and you've got that frustration and acceptance, going backwards and forwards. And I think what we're seeing right across the world, actually, not just here, but in a micro level, so in homes, so individual families and individuals, right through to great big corporates with global networks. We were shuttling between frustration and acceptance. And then we were just kind of, in getting back to work, moving up the curve, but we just didn't get enough momentum, and we slipped right back down, and we're now sitting in frustration.
Yeah.
And, as a change agent, the objective is to get enough momentum when you're down at the bottom, so you can go right up the other side of the curve and kind of get into normal, everyday, integrated, new ways.
Yeah.
And we're so far off that. And I wonder, as a local authority, that must be quite challenging, because, you're set out on, there are budgets, there are yearly, annual plans.
Yeah.
And most of the corporates I'm working with, their strategy plans, they're 3 months ahead. That's it. They're not looking 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. How does it work with local authority when, there's funding was, the laws around funding were changed dramatically a couple of years ago in local authority, and government, basically said, you guys need to fend for yourselves. find your own monies and work like a commercial organization. And yet now all of a sudden you can't even be long-term in your planning. So how does a change agent looking at service design without a long-term strategy, how does that play out? Because immediately that says, I don't know. We're in the I don't know world.
Yeah. It's actually quite comforting, to be honest. So in service design, one of the ethoses of it, and one of the things you have to get used to very quickly is ambiguity. So you have to have that professional curiosity to look at something and go, I don't know what the solution is, and nor should I. It's not my place to go, here you go, this is how you solve that. It's about looking at all of it. And the key thing as well is iteration. So building something small and then building upon that. The Southend have a it's it'd be good if I could remember it. It'd be really insightful if I could, wouldn't it? It'd be so good. That's how we reel him in for part 2 of this, isn't it? We'll quote it there.
We'll leave the listeners hanging.
No, it's test and learn.
Okay.
And that really speaks to service design approach, but also that change approach as well. And it's the amount of senior managers now who are being a lot more open to saying, exactly like you said there, Brad, I don't know about X. We can't plan that far forward. And it is about that iterative approach. And that's one of the positives that are coming out of it. It's forced wholesale changes in how we behave and how we think about things and how we approach it, because it's very easy to fall back on, well, we did this 5-10 years ago and we've always done it that way, so let's continue to do so. This is quite a great leveler now with the impact that it's having and how we actually do things now, and actually speak, like I said before, about speaking to people, residents, actual just people, not assuming I've assumed this is how you feel about the impact of COVID. There's serious things going on. People are losing lives, people are losing livelihoods, and it's actually speaking to them and saying, how did you feel about this? What would have been something that you needed from this, from the council's point of view, to support you on X, Y, and Z? And that's been really good. The danger is that, and I have started to notice this, is that we go backwards and we just do things how we did, but we just do it in a different way. So we just do it from virtually now, but we're still doing it in the same way. And I've noticed that with meetings is a very good example. Before, at the very start, it was very much meetings were to the point, and everyone's like, right, I've got to do something really important. So let's cut to the chase, and it worked well. Now what I'm noticing is, and everyone is saying this as well, is that the diary's getting full up again. It's like, I don't know why I'm in this meeting. I've sat in some meetings. I remember you guys, CTG, delivering, managing meetings, and it's about, if you don't get that agenda,
right,
then don't go. And do you know how many meetings I've gone to without an agenda now? It's a lot.
Test and learn.
Test and learn. Yeah. That's the danger, though.
But that's, I like the test and learn concept, because in coaching we do, there's an approach called design thinking approach.
It's perfect.
Right. And it takes its concept from technology engineers who create prototypes, get feedback, test it, and then get the feedback again and go back into the loop. And this idea of continuous learning.
Yeah.
You're right. There's almost an expectation now. I spoke to someone the other day, Gareth. He had been on Zoom calls from 7:30 in the morning until 9 o'clock at night.
That's getting more common as well.
Right. Just now, he's a senior manager, senior leader. He probably did need to be on most of those calls, not all of them. He definitely didn't need to be in all of them for the whole length of the meeting. And one of the things I've been talking to people about is, what would happen if, when you're sat in that meeting, once you've sort of contributed to your bit, what would happen if you said, right, guys, I'm stepping out now because I don't need to be here?
Yeah.
And, we are looking sort of ways of being more productive, more efficient, more effective. You're there to look at, how do I help people change? And maybe there's a way of even, you and your colleagues in your kind of part of the organization, you can really model the way. You can help design the way people operate, because, the whole organization isn't going to be sat in an office. Well, I can't see this year that happening.
No.
Maybe by February, we're coming out of winter, going into spring, vaccine potential. So I heard today, I don't know whether you'd be up for it, the UK government have endorsed a trial to proactively inject people with the virus once they've been given a vaccine sample.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I don't know what the efficacy of that is, but I had wondered, if the government, instead of just giving away billions of dollars that will affect, our kids' lives in the future and paying it back, whether if they offered out a certain amount of money to people to have the virus, and of course you can't guarantee outcomes there, so it's incredibly risky. But we just don't know, and it's this "I don't know" again that comes up. How do we go back to doing things? Well, actually, maybe we don't go back to doing things at all.
Yeah.
We just look at the momentum of moving forward. So there's a huge opportunity, I think, for local authorities to really shift the whole way they're imagined.
Yeah.
Because the services still have to happen, right? I mean, people still need benefits, people still need housing, people still need refuse collected. The commercial side, money still needs to be raised, although I don't know how easy that is today. So those services still have to happen, but the way you operate. So when you look forward, what do you see as some of the opportunities for innovation and kind of, collective responsibility where organizations like yours could change the way they do things? Where are there opportunities for that?
Yeah, I mean, speaking globally, so my little way out of answering any specifics on that is because I'm not associated with one service area. So they all have their own ways of working. They all have their own legislation and regulations that govern how there's certain things that have to be done, but also they've all got their own issues. Some of them are crossovers, and you see them again from council to council. You can go, I can bet that this is your top issue, and you're going to be.
Yeah.
But in terms of the level of detail, I don't need to have that level of detail at any one time because it would drive me crazy. And also, I don't think I need to either. I don't need to take on ownership of someone's service area. It's not for me to have that. But what I would say to that is the opportunities that are present is when you talk about that the creativity and innovation from that, what you described as that design process is exactly what we use for service design. It's that way of going. So in terms of developing innovation, it's actually quite simple. Innovation is really looking at all things. So again, you have that systemic view, and you have the people that are most affected leading that change. So co-production, and we're very, very strong in that service design and also within Southend Council. So it's more about finding out what it is and looking at services and completely shifting them, because a lot of them have been designed around internal processes, dare I say internal politics with a small p as well, those kind of things, and they just come to be. They're just, that's the way it is now, because again, they've always been that way.
Right.
So the opportunities now to completely change on its face, what I'd like to see happen, and I don't know how feasible this would be and how realistic it is, would be to go, we're gonna do a restart button. We're gonna press restart, and we're just gonna start completely from scratch, right from the ground up, grassroots. You speak to the people who are using your services, and you build it around them rather than it building around your internal structures and they have to tap into it.
Yeah. And it's that tapping into it bit that then requires people to be totally present, seeing what's going on around them and then responding to the situation. Because that's something I've definitely observed, this kind of, if you're going to react to something, you're going to bring emotion into play and it's not going to be very measured. I think what COVID and lockdown and all those things have done for us is it's driven people to start thinking about, how can I respond best to this situation? And from a local authority perspective, I think it gives you a real insight into, like you were saying, going out and talking to people and residents and actually saying, what is it you need? Like, what do you actually now? What they might need and what you can do might not always be aligned. I get that. You know, I'm not naive, so it needs to be managed. But maybe that's part of what we also need to do with our people. It's like, you know, what do you need to do the job? And what can we give you to do the job? And I think as someone who sits within that change world, you've got a really important part to play that helps others get through change. Of course, when most change initiatives happen in organizations, there's a vision of where you're trying to get to. There's that future state, and you move from the current state to the future state. And right now, what we've got is we're in a transition state, but we don't know what the future state is. So we're like just permanently fixed and dilated in this transition state, which is really uncomfortable. People are grieving for the old way. There's a loss of, you know, for some, even their jobs, as you said, their livelihoods, businesses going out of action, people losing their jobs after being furloughed. There's a lot going on. I wonder, when you put your pure change hat on, where do you see the positives for moving forward? What does a, you know, service design change agent think of when you think of, you know, this is really good and meaty, you know, we can really do something positive with this?
Well, that's a loaded question, I feel, but
it is.
I'll do my best to answer.
I've completely hung you out to dry on the final question.
Yeah. Does this get edited before it goes on?
No, it's complete freestyle and free flow.
So there's a few things, because if I was to talk globally, the use of technology for councils has been very, very, very slow to be adopted. There's always been reasons why. There's always been reasons why people don't want to work from home, for example. That has been obliterated. That has been completely obliterated, and that's been really, really good. There are things that need to be managed, and like you said, that future focus of it, what the future state is going to be, it does need to be plotted out a little bit more so. Otherwise, you've just stumbled in it, and it's not going to work. It'll get sticky. For me, in service design in Southend, we work on, you know, internally based projects that are more organisational design orientated, and then the service design ones that are more based on social reasoning. So I enjoy that mix. What I would say about the latter, it's really meaty. I mean, everything's meaty with that. I've done some work with the Senko team, the special educational needs coordinators across the borough of Southend. That was fantastic. And also at the minute doing some work to support the children's centres in the early years services as well. That's really, really good. And there's some really, really important reasons why now, more so than ever, because of the impact of COVID, where you're having things like domestic abuse on the rise. There's access, even talking about technology, where, you know, schools had to previously deliver education virtually, and plotting for the future and how they manage it. There's the digital poverty aspect as well. So they're really, really meaty, because it's not just about the family aspect. It's about these children who need to have the best start in life, and that for me is really, really meaty. I always really enjoyed the organisational design aspect, making sure, you know, on paper it's quite straightforward. This is the need. This is how you restructure to meet that need, and this is what you're left with. In practice, that's nowhere near as easy as I've just described it.
No.
That was where my mind was more so geared towards, but actually going out and speaking with people, I did the Senko stuff was great. I went and met some of the kids, their characters as well. They're fantastic, and it brings it to life. And it's no different to speaking to an individual, whether that's their parent, whether that's, you know, a teacher, whether it's your CEO in your own organisation or a head teacher. They're no different. They have needs, they have wants, they have experiences, which is the key thing.
Yeah.
And it's that opportunity to develop that empathy with them, to go, right, okay, I'm hearing, I'm feeling what you felt. I couldn't see it because I'm on the other end of it, but now I do. Let's work together. I think that's the real key. That's the real opportunity now, because even when we've done it in the past, it's been against the grain. I would like to see it be the grain now. I'd like it to be everything we do. And that approach that you said about before, which, yeah, I completely agree. Local authorities need to be thinking less about that long-term financial strategy aspect and more short-term. I would like to see that again be, that's the way we do things. We do things, we have a longer-term vision in mind. You can never avoid that. But the steps that we take along that way, the lessons that we learn, we're not just looking, oh, we're going to deliver X. It's a case of, we're going to find out, we're going to deliver little bits of that by speaking to the people that matter, shape it around that, test and learn, find out what's working from that, and adapt quickly as well. That's the key for me. So I don't know if I particularly answered your question, if I expertly navigated.
Both. I thought you expertly navigated away from it and kind of came back to it at the end. And actually, interestingly, I think it brings us full circle, because we start off the conversation with your initial observations about what you're seeing people within the organisation and outside acting like because of the scenario that we're living in. And then we finish with what we could actually do to make sure that we continue to live and operate within that strange environment, but with a positive focus. Gareth, that's been brilliant. I think a perfect 35 minutes of interaction, and a shout out to Ellie for twisting your arm to do this. You'll have to listen to the whole thing to get a shout out at the end.
Yeah, right at the end. You know how to reel them in, don't you, Brad?
That's how to do it. Leave them hanging. Gareth Nicholas, change agent extraordinaire. Thank you for sharing some really cool insights and for being part of these podcasts. I've thoroughly enjoyed seeing and chatting again. We should do another episode maybe in the next 3 to 6 months and see what the world looks like then.
That'll be very interesting. I'll be very up for it as well. Thanks for inviting me on as well. It's been good to catch up with you.
Pleasure. I'll stop recording and I'll send you a link when we're about to publish.
Cool.
Cheers, Gareth.